I'm Alex Savidge with KTVU Fox 2 News in the San Francisco Bay Area. And today we are joined by Donald Schaffner, who is a food safety expert and a professor at Rutgers University. Donald, we really appreciate you coming on today. And you know, I think in this day and age, there is a sort of a heightened anxiety about doing grocery shopping for so many reasons. So let's start off with kind of the broad question here. How concerned should people be about catching the coronavirus from the food that we're buying at the grocery store?
Sure. So let me start by saying when shopping for food is not actually coming from the food, it's coming from the other people in the grocery store. So we know how the virus is spread. It's spread person to person through respiratory droplets. So somebody in the grocery store sneezing or coughing next to you, or maybe even somebody who is asymptomatic for the virus or for COVID-19, but who is nevertheless spreading the virus. That's going to be the way that you contract the virus in the grocery store. There is no evidence that the virus is spread through food, and there's also no evidence the virus is spread through food packaging. Now, with that said, I do want to sort of put a line on that and say, that's what we believe to be true today on the day that we're talking. The science is evolving and we may come to a different conclusion, but for now, we can say that there is not a risk from food or from food packaging.
So with that being said, it sounds like your best advice would be that people there's no need to, once I get a product home from the store, a box of cereal, there's no need for me to wipe that down, to try to disinfect each of the individual items that I just bought.
No, there are some viral videos out there that are recommending that. The science doesn't really support that. What the science says is that we should be doing the same things that we were always doing, which is practicing good hand washing, using hand sanitizer. My recommendation is every time you change activities is you use a hand wash or use a hand sanitizer, right? So when I leave the grocery store, if there's hand sanitizer available, I'm going to use some. When I arrive at home, I'm going to do a hand wash or hand sanitizer. I could put my groceries away. If I'm really worried that there might have been some coronavirus on those groceries, after I'm done putting my groceries away, I'm going to use hand sanitizer or wash my hands again. And then, of course, the other thing is after I prepared a meal using that food I bought from the grocery store, and before I sit down, so before I prepare the meal, good time to wash my hands. And then before I sit down to eat, another really good time to wash my hands and or use some hand sanitizer.
At washing the hands, as you point out, is really the key here to all of this. Okay, so we talk about the items that are prepackaged and they're not being so much of a concern about disinfecting those. What about produce? A lot of people are looking at that produce section and they're having a panic attack because they're thinking, I'm in the store, all these other people are just walking around and who knows what kind of germs are flying around and landing on those.
Sure.
Should folks be coming home and washing all their produce?
Well, again, let me reiterate, the single biggest risk from shopping for produce at the grocery store is going to be the person standing next to you who sneezes or coughs or who breathes out the virus if they're asymptomatic. So that's the big risk, okay? But let's say you do decide to get some produce from the grocery store, you bring it home. Remember, again, no evidence that the virus is transmitted by food. So my recommendation for how do you handle the produce is the same way that you handled it before the pandemic. It's going to be the same way you handle it after the pandemic, and that is to wash it with cold water. If it's a produce item that has a hard surface that you're not going to eat, like a cantaloupe or a melon, you can scrub that with a good vegetable brush to get it clean, to get all the dirt off, all right, to remove any foodborne bacteria that might be there. But there's no reason to disinfect with alcohol or chlorine, and you absolutely shouldn't be using Lysol wipes. I saw somebody tweeted out the other day, they wiped an apple down with a Lysol wipe. Not recommended. Those wipes are for use on hard surfaces. They're not for use on food, and that's absolutely not recommended. The other thing I see people recommending, and this is also not recommended, is using soap. Soap is great for cleaning hands. It's great for cleaning dishes. It's not for use on food. In fact, you can actually give yourself nausea, vomiting, diarrhea from ingestion of soap. So I don't recommend using soap to wash your produce either.
Yeah, very, very good advice there. Let's go back to that trip to the grocery store, and we're seeing a lot of precautions being taken in a lot of ways. The grocery stores here, I'm sure where you are too, folks are lined up outside of the store, 6 feet apart. It's to try to limit the number of people inside the store at any given time. Do you feel like there are enough precautions being taken by supermarkets and grocery stores in general to keep people safe? And if not, what more can be done, you think?
Yeah, I mean, I still feel like it's yeah. So I still feel like it's safe to shop at my local grocery store. They're putting hand sanitizer at the entrance. That's great. I'll take a hit of hand sanitizer when I walk in. That's not to protect me. That's to protect everybody else in the store in case I have coronavirus on my hands. I've made a shopping list before I go to the store, so I know exactly what I need. I move through the store. Just move through the store as efficiently as I can. And then personally, I'm going to bring my own reusable bags because I know that I have to wash those and there's no coronavirus on those.
Okay.
Some stores in some states are banning reusable bags.
I was going to ask you about
but if it's
that.
allowed, I'm going to bring mine with myself.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about the reusable bag issue because I know here I've heard some of the grocery stores, they're saying, no, these are the stores that all along, for the past couple of years have been encouraging everyone to show up with all your reusable bags. We've now gotten into that habit, and now these same stores are telling us, no, don't bring those reusable bags into the building. You think that's a pretty smart move? And if stores are still allowing the bags, how do you say folks should be cleaning them? Just putting them in the washer?
Yeah. So first of all, I mean, the store has a right to run the business however they want. I don't think there's any science showing that reusable bags present a risk. I heard it expressed to me that the employees in the store are worried about the reusable bag. That's a good point, but I would say that the person at the cash register who's checking me out, who might be handling my reusable bag, their biggest risk is me breathing or coughing on them, and vice versa. My biggest risk is from them, not from their reusable bag. So where they are allowed, I will continue to use my reusable bag. I prefer to go through the self-checkout, so that way I'm not putting a cashier at risk, and the cashier is not putting me at risk. When I get home, after I unload my food from that reusable bag, I'm going to wash that on a regular basis. Daily is probably at least sufficient, and probably weekly is recommended. The only time I will say you absolutely must wash your reusable bag is if you use that bag to transport meat or poultry and the package leaks. This is a lousy time to get food poisoning. You don't want to go to a hospital with food poisoning, and so if those meat juices get on the bag, that's a great time to immediately take that bag and throw it right in the wash. Wash it on the hottest temperature that's allowed that the bag is labeled for.
All right. So at the grocery store, I'm also seeing a lot of people coming in wearing the latex gloves. Do you recommend that? Do you think that's helpful?
Well, again, if people want to wear gloves because they think it's making them safe, I've got no problem with it. Personally, I'm not going to wear gloves. Like I said, I'm going to take a hit of hand sanitizer when I walk in. That's going to sanitize my hands. I'm going to take a hit on the way out. That's to protect me from anything I might have picked up in the store. The grocery store where I shop regularly, I know they are cleaning and disinfecting their shopping carts. And so I know that if I had to use a shopping cart from them, it's going to be cleaned and sanitized. But I suppose people feel like they've got an extra level of protection from gloves. The thing to realize about gloves is the gloves are not magic, right? So for example, if you put on a glove and then you've got coronavirus and you cough into your glove, well, now you've got coronavirus on the glove, same as you put on your hand. And so again, gloves aren't magic, but if people feel like it's helping them to reduce risk, that's good. I think the other point that we have to make with respect to gloves is really the people that really need the gloves are the frontline medical personnel. So we had a bunch of gloves and other personal protective equipment in my laboratory at Rutgers University, and we were asked to donate that to hospitals so people can have that. And I said, yeah, absolutely. The lab is mostly shut down. We don't need that stuff. We're happy to donate it. So it's fine if you wear gloves, but you shouldn't be wearing gloves if that's taking those gloves away from a medical professional that really needs them.
There's sort of some people out there who think it's a good idea that once they buy all those groceries from the store, when they get back to their house, their line of thinking is, I'm going to leave these groceries outside for some amount of time and sort of let the coronavirus die off, if you will. What do you say to folks who think that's going to be a good way to go?
Well, so here's the thing. We know that the virus does not live outside the human body. And in fact, some people would say it's not even alive when it's inside the body, okay? But we do know that the virus inactivates over time, but that inactivation rate is dependent on temperature, right? And so, for example, it was 45 degrees this morning when I woke up here in New Jersey. If I put my groceries in the garage, I'm just preserving the virus, right? Those groceries, if those groceries have virus on them, the virus is going to die faster in my house because my house is warmer than outside. And so that advice that you're going to somehow make the groceries safe by putting them outside, again, it's not founded on good science. I can't recommend it because it's not based on science. Again, remember, no evidence that we get coronavirus from food packaging, and so I'm really not worried about that, and I'm certainly not putting my groceries on my porch or in the garage.
Yeah, and also as you point, as you allude to the fact that you're going to cause other problems if you leave, especially poultry, meat, those sorts of things. If you leave it out for too long before putting it away, other risks are involved aside from coronavirus.
Yep.
Let's talk about, we've heard a lot about grocery store workers being, some of the unsung heroes during this crisis. I mean, these are really, in essence, some of the frontline workers because they are in an essential business. Yeah, go ahead.
Let me just put my dog outside.
No.
Hey, buddy, come on. Go, Rick, go. All right, dog. Now we're in a dog-free room.
Okay, yeah.
Can you ask the question again?
I got a kid-free room. You got a dog-free room. We're
good.
I know. This is the most challenging part about all this, but it's sort of fun in some ways. So it happens. We're all living our lives at home, and life goes on. I wanted to ask you about grocery store workers and how they can be protecting themselves. I mean, these are folks who are, they're on the front lines right now. They're essential workers here. We need to have the stores open. We need to go get food. What are the best ways that folks who have to work in these supermarkets and be face-to-face with customers on a daily basis, what are the best ways that they should be protecting themselves?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Obviously, they need to also practice social distancing as much as possible. They should also be washing their hands, using hand sanitizer on a regular basis. There's been a lot of discussion around masks. We know that masks are protective. Well, certain kinds of masks are protective if you yourself are sick, but of course, if a grocery store worker is sick, they shouldn't be working. They shouldn't be around food, and they shouldn't be around people. So I know it's been rumored that CDC is going to come out with some advice on masks. Yeah. Masks right now, we need to reserve those for medical professionals, but at some point we may see a recommendation from CDC about using masks. But again, the science on that is still if we're going to make masks at home. We don't necessarily know what the best do-it-yourself mask design might be. So again, I would say watch this space. We're looking to develop some guidance. I'm working with some colleagues at North Carolina State University to develop some guidance around homemade masks if people want to go that way, but we're still sorting out the details there. But again, to come back to your point about grocery store workers, they could be wearing gloves, they could be doing hand washing, hand sanitizer use, practicing social distancing as best as possible from the other workers as well as from the customers.
Do you know what happened to me the other day at the grocery store was that the cashier checked me out, and by the way, they had put up a shield, plastic see-through shield between myself and her as I checked out, which I thought was probably a pretty smart move to limit that contact. And then at the same time, she said that I was going to bag my own groceries, which of course it was certainly fine. But you think how much of a difference you think something like that makes, as opposed to having one of the store employees put the groceries in the bag for you. I do it myself.
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say probably the physical barrier is going to be the best, because let's come back to what we know about the virus, right? The virus is spread by person-to-person contact. So some sort of a physical barrier that would block a sneeze or a cough or even aerosolization of the virus. That's going to probably be the best benefit right there. But on the other hand, I don't mind bagging my own stuff. Like I said, I'm probably going through the self-checkout myself anyway with my reusable bags, if that's going to be allowed. And so I certainly don't mind that. And I also have to say, we should really try to all get along as best we can. I really appreciate that these folks are really out there on the front lines, right? Making sure that we have the food that we need to stay alive and to stay safe. And if they think that it helps them for me to bag my own groceries, you know what? I'm okay with that. Even if it's a situation where, from a risk perspective as a scientist, I don't think it's really doing all that much to remove the risk for them. If it makes them feel better, and that's going to help reduce their stress in their lives, and that's going to help them do a better job being a grocery store employee, I'll do that, right? Even though I know the science base isn't exactly there.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because I think that's kind of how we started the conversation, was with the fact that going to the grocery store during these times is just sort of, there's a heightened level of anxiety around all of it, and it's a good point. If the grocery store workers, if something like that, a step like that, puts them more at ease, then I think it's better for everyone who's in that store, customers included, because we all need to.
And especially. Yeah, especially if it's something that doesn't increase my risk, right? And so there's nothing there in that process that I think is going to increase my risk. And so we have to look at, what we all need to do to make us all feel good, well, to help us all be safe, and then also feel safe.
Yeah, absolutely. It's your physical well-being, your mental well-being, and we're trying to work on both of those things simultaneously. All right, as we wrap up here, Donald, let's just sort of reiterate, I think, the overarching point here, which is that I think there is a lot of concern about whether the groceries we're buying from the store and bringing back into our homes, whether that's going to put us at risk for contracting the coronavirus. And I think what you're saying is, don't worry. Take some of the minimal steps to be cautious, but you don't need to be too concerned about the food that you're bringing into your home.
Right. Again, remember, the biggest risk is from other people. It's not from food. It's not from food packaging. So just practicing good hand washing, good use of hand sanitizers. Those are the things that we know the science supports are good to do anyway, and they're especially good in these times. And don't stress too much about your groceries. Don't believe everything that you read or that you see on the internet. Again, there's a lot of misinformation out there, so I would encourage people to go to trusted information sources. FDA, CDC, USDA, university professors who study this stuff like me. We're going to try to give you the best science-based advice we can.
All right. Well, we really appreciate you coming on here. It's really helpful information to have, and to kind of allay some of those fears that folks have. You don't blame folks for being a little bit concerned in this day and age, but it's good to know that there's not reason to worry when we head out to the grocery store. Donald Schaffner, a food safety expert, professor at Rutgers University. Certainly appreciate your time and for weighing in on this very important topic here. Take care of yourself. Stay healthy. Be well.